Welcome to the Synoptic Gospel, Overview of the Gospel Series, Part 7, the Synoptic Gospel. To review, over the past 2,000 years, many have recognized the value of being able to more easily see all that Jesus Christ said and did by displaying the 3 or 4 Gospels in columns side by side as a harmony, and then to combine their actual words in some way as a merger. As this also seemed logical to me, many years ago, before I had heard of the Diatessaron or had seen any merger, I began combining certain sets of parallel verses that interested me, to try and understand the fullness of what the 4 Gospels of Jesus were saying in certain places. One of the early parallel sets that interested me was this. In this example of a parallel story being told in Mark and Luke's Gospel, Jesus enters the synagogue. As always, note the similarities and the differences between these 2 accounts. So to know the full context of what happened here, the first step is to line up the parallel sections of the overlapping Gospel verses so that they are grouped in columns like a harmony, as we have seen. The verses are divided where necessary and aligned into groups of individual words which have the identical or same meaning of thought or action. In order to be precise, the verses as originally assigned in the 4 Gospels were broken where necessary, and each piece of each split verse was notated. Using a tilde, the little horizontal squiggly line, it is possible to notate 3 pieces of a split verse. The tilde indicates the direction of the next piece of the split verse, which is usually located on the line below the line of the current piece when presented in columnar form like this. To split a verse into more than 3 pieces, a number can be added to the trailing right tilde to designate each additional piece. The key to splitting verses and the notation system that I used looks like this and can be seen on the website. In this way, a verse can be split into infinite pieces, and each piece accurately noted. In the Gospels, there is one verse that I found that needed to be split into 18 pieces. So, knowing that each piece is accurately notated, it is possible to move the pieces around as needed, to precisely align them for meaning, knowing that the original sequence of the words, or at least the original flow of those words in the English NASB, the New American Standard Bible, could be accounted for, and this means that the original sequence of the pieces of the verse can always be read. So by moving words and verses and pieces of split verses up and down in their columns, it is possible to very precisely align them for equivalency of meaning across the same line. By this, I mean that each horizontal line now contains the same or equivalent meaning of thought or action, whether there is text from only one Gospel or wording from all 4. When this is done, unique words and groups of words without parallel end up on their own line. Once the words of the verses are aligned for equivalency of meaning in this way, it is now possible to unify the lines of words for more than one Gospel. The first step to do that is to add another column. If there are 4 columns, one for each of the 4 Gospels, then this column is a 5th column. The next step is to copy into this 5th column all of the verses that are unique to each Gospel for which there is no parallel among the others. What remains is material that is shared by more than one Gospel, and this can be merged or combined. When the Gospels are using identical wording, it is easy to make one copy of that text once in the 5th column. By doing this, the duplication is eliminated. However, it is not always so easy when the Gospels use different words to say the same thing. In each place where there was a difference in the parallel Gospels of a word or a suffix or even a single letter, then a choice had to be made as to which word or words would be copied into the 5th column and which word or words or suffixes would not be copied. In order to merge and harmonize the individual words of the overlapping parts of the 4 Gospels, I developed a 3-part 16-step merging process, of which we will cover most as we go on. You can view the notes found on the website. In those places where a word is not retained and copied into the 5th column, that unused word can be shown as struck through within its respective Gospel column or columns. In this way, it can always be seen what the original sequence of the wording of the individual Gospels was, and it can be seen whether or not the best or most logical choice of which word to keep was made. Occasionally, to maintain a smooth and logical flow of thought and action from one line of text to the next, or from one scene of action to the next, it is useful to add a word to the text of the 5th column that does not appear within that line of the 4 original Gospel columns. Usually these are small words and joiners like the word the or and. Also, to maintain logical flow, words were substituted or added in the fifth column in place of a word from that line in one of the four gospel columns. A common type of substitution was to insert a name in place of a pronoun, such as Jesus or the name of a person for he and vice versa. Also for logical flow, the suffixes of certain words can be changed to change the tense, as from the past to the present, or a suffix can be added or modified to change an object from singular to plural, and vice versa. To note any additions or modifications, all added words and changed suffixes are enclosed inside square brackets within the fifth column. Now with this method, it is possible to see what any set of parallel verses might say if their words were precisely notated and harmonized in this way, and, because it can be seen what the textual modifications were, the merged text of the fifth column can be checked and even modified and improved. If you would like to participate in helping to refine and perfect the Synoptic Gospel, visit the feedback page at the website. So with this in mind, let us look at what the sign said that was placed above the head of Jesus as he was hanging from the cross, because all four of the Gospels record that the sign said something a little different. Here you can see what the four original Gospels say about this event. As always, note the similarities between the Gospels, and note the details that are added by John's Gospel, that it was Pilate who hung the sign there, likely not Pilate himself, but that he had the sign hung there with his authority. And here you can see what these four different accounts might look like when the verses are split and the words are lined up for equivalency of meaning. And after all of the 16 steps of the merging process have combined the words and eliminated the duplication, the most complete version of these original English NASB words, when harmonized together, might be taken to read as. So you can see that by ordering the words for logical flow and equivalency of meaning, the result is not only complete, but because it is easier to read, it is also much easier to understand. So this is what the sign might have said that was hung on the cross above Jesus. It is clear that combining parallel passages in this way makes it possible to easily see the full context from the four original Gospels, and this is especially helpful in being able to know all of the words that Jesus himself spoke during his sermons and teachings and parables. I like the result of combining interesting verses so much that I decided to sit down and complete the entire sequence of the four Gospels, first as a detailed harmony against a timeline, and then as a merger according to this 16-step unification process. The result is a very complete 5-column database I called, for obvious reasons, 5-column. The unified text of the 5th column of that database is the New Gospel and is titled the Synoptic Gospel and is subtitled The Story of the Life of Jesus. While the full 5-column database is in some ways one of the most complex books in the world, the Synoptic Gospel reprint of its 5th column is the Gospel story told as simply as it is possible to tell. The NASB version of the four Gospels contains 83,680 words, and it takes quite a bit of time to read. At just 65,392 words, the text of the Synoptic Gospel is 22% shorter, and is therefore much faster and easier to read than to read 4 separate accounts and then be confused about what actually happened and what Jesus may have said or when or where he was when he said it. The main consideration of this work was that the full detail from each and every word contained within each Gospel account was included, and that not one word was unnecessarily omitted. In this way, it is easy to see how the wording of each verse of the 5th column of the Synoptic Gospel was generated, and you can still read the original wording sequence of the 4 Gospels. This ends Part 7 of the Synoptic Gospel, Overview of the Gospels.